Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. We are here after the first couple of games of NFL Wildcard Weekend. We had the Texans dismantle the Chargers. We all got that game wrong. We were not expecting Herbert to perform as poorly as he performed. And then the Ravens beat the Steelers pretty comfortably in the second half. They showed some life. But fellas, how are we feeling after the first two games of the NFL playoffs?
I'm doing pretty excellent. Shout out to Lamar Jackson. Thought he played a pretty excellent game. More importantly, shout out to my GOAT, Derrick Henry, solidifying himself as an all-time great, if he wasn't already that. His fourth game of having 150-plus rushing yards. Legend, one of the best I've ever seen. And then the Chargers, pulling a Chargers-type move in the playoff. Death, taxes, and the Chargers choking in the playoffs. I love it.
How you doing, Riv?
Oh, I thought you were gonna go next. I'm great, man. This is what I prayed for. I picked the Chargers to win, but I prayed for the Texans to win, and they did that. So I was pretty excited about that. And then the next game, we kind of knew it was gonna be a snooze fest. So it was a little excitement for like 5 minutes of the game, but for the most part, I guess we got the boring games out the way. So I'm excited for tomorrow, truthfully.
I was surprised Riv didn't take the Texans when we did. Because normally Riv is a guy that it doesn't matter who the matchup is. It just vibes for Riv a lot of the time. That's why I was surprised to take Houston.
It didn't feel like vibes coming in, bro. I'll be honest. It felt like no vibes, but I'm pretty excited about it. Some people in here disrespected him. Some people in here had some forced hate. Just hate that doesn't even feel like real legit hate. It just feels like it's forced because he hates another black man. But nonetheless, I'm not going to go too much into it. But another playoff win, more than the Jets in some time. So shout out to my GOAT, man.
I mean, our boy pulled through today, Riv. CJ Stroud was spectacular.
Our boy.
He was doing his thing.
My
boy. Goodness.
All right. That's new.
No, listen, the Chargers, we will get to them. I feel like even though I think the biggest storyline of this game was clearly the Chargers malfunctioning and Justin Herbert playing terribly, I just feel like a part of me is disrespecting the Texans by not talking about them winning a playoff game, because even though the regular season was up and down, they just needed a playoff moment. They needed a win to kind of get some vibes going a little bit in their season. And this defense is really dominant. Like, Dehls, you had a tweet about it with how close is Derrick Stingley to PS2? They're both first-team all pros. They're both excellent players. Derrick Stingley Jr. had 2 interceptions in this game. It's just hard to understate how excellent the Texans' defense is. Their defensive line took control. Will Anderson Jr. was the best player on the field, in my opinion. The secondary with Lassiter, Derrick Stingley Jr., Kalen Bullock. The Texans have an elite-level defense, and their offense was able to generate some drives when CJ Stroud and Nico Collins just kind of took control. I felt like it all started with CJ, the bad snap, and him just making a play. And I feel like we haven't seen that in such a long time, but it was being saved for a moment like this in the NFL playoffs. And shout out to the Texans, because everybody was doubting them, and they came out and they beat the shit out the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Bobby slow even before that play, which was the bobbled snap, and then he just hit Hutchinson. Before that, you saw some life with this team. You saw them get to the quick game. It always felt like when they started running the ball, that's when you felt the drive would just die. And then they kind of got away from that, and they're like, fuck it, we're just gonna put the hands in our best player, have him hit Nico on these quick out routes, make a play. And they ended up doing that. You saw some good drives. He had a couple interceptions, a couple bad ones, and they had a fumble too. But for the most part, I felt like the offense, when it wasn't running the ball at first, it was able to get going. Then it created lanes towards the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter where you were able to run the ball because of the fact that now you kind of open up the field with your pass game. But this game definitely gets handed to the defense for the Texans. The defense was just from, the defensive linemen to the secondary, they were all on go. They pretty much hounded Justin Herbert. They destroyed the Chargers offensive line. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., they were able to make plays. You mentioned the secondary. The secondary is really young, and they were able to make plays. And, they kept talking about it during the commentators. Like, Joe Mixon was the most experienced guy on this roster in for the playoffs. Like, he's a guy that's went to the Super Bowl. He's been there. So this is somebody who kind of gave him a little bit of a pep talk in the locker room, and it seemed like it worked because now this team, came out. They were really aggressive on defense, and the defense kept them in the game. The Chargers started the game off 6-0. Even the defense got to stop kind of in the Texans' territory when they threw that interception. Defense got to stop, and they was able to do their thing. So, like you mentioned, shout out to the Texans because everybody on here, definitely for sure, we doubted them. We thought they'd kind of lose. The Chargers kind of coming in hot. The Texans were kind of free falling, and they got that monkey off their back, and they won this playoff game. So, shout out to the Texans.
Shout out to the Texans is right. I was not expecting them to come in here and beat the Chargers.
We saw your tweets.
I'm fine with that. They got a tough matchup going up next week. We'll see how they fare there.
Look at you. That's diabolical.
This was a really good game for Houston. I think obviously they need this, right? It's the playoffs, obviously do or die. But more than anything, CJ Stroud needed this game, right? Because me included, a lot of people were really down CJ Stroud, and I think deservedly so. This was a huge sophomore slump for him, right? The raw numbers I was actually looking like before the game started was like 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, like 37, 30, 100 yards. It's like, okay, it's not terrible. But from where he came from his rookie season and just watching him eye test wise, he was obviously not the same type of quarterback that he was last year, but he did make some really nice plays in this game, right? I really think the turning point of this game was the end of the first half, because up until basically the second to final drive the Texans have, it was all Chargers. Although it was 6-0, they were in complete control. They were able to stifle everything the Texans wanted to do on offense. And for themselves, they were able to get a couple of field goals because they were in good field position because they got a couple of turnovers. But up until that second to final drive where the Texans were able to go down the field, score a touchdown on Nico Collins, then the Chargers go 3 and out. They're able to go down the field again. CJ Stroud has like a 25-yard rush. They kick a field goal, go up 10-6. That's where everything changed. The offense for Houston, though, for majority of this game, I still didn't love. They only had 2 touchdown drives in totality. Of course, they scored 14 points from their defense, another 2 points from their special team. So the offense still wasn't perfect, but the defense was so dominant that it was able to make up for it. And what we've been seeing, and we've known this for a while, but their pass rush duo, right? Being able to have Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, if you're able to get up in games, if you're able to have leads, you're up 10-6 going into halftime, and these guys can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. That's how Houston can become dangerous. Their offense is still a little bit too chaotic for me to really trust them, going up against Kansas City next week, for example, to have a real shot. But if they're able to have a lead, get a pick six like we saw them do multiple times, get a fumble, and play up from 7-0 or 10-3, something like that, they at least have a chance. With that being said, to talk about the Chargers for a minute, everyone's going sour on Justin Herbert. It's fine, right? Like, I think we all expected this. Even coming into this game, everyone was saying he shouldn't be a top 5 quarterback, no playoff moment, X, Y, and Z. And he goes out here and has an absolute stinker. 4 interceptions. 3 out of the 4 were his fault. The one to Will Disley, he just dropped. But 3 out of the 4 were genuinely his fault. And 3 out of the 4, or 2 out of the 4 were honestly terrible. The underthrow to the right side of the field, crossbody throw to Quentin Johnson, absolutely inexcusable interceptions from Justin Herbert. I know he's a better quarterback than that. Eventually, talent's going to prevail for Justin Herbert. Eventually, something's going to click, and Justin Herbert's going to be able to get over this rut, and he's going to have playoff success. What Drew said in the beginning is true, because it's death, taxes, and it's the Chargers choking in the playoffs. I did think that would change because they have Jim Harbaugh here, who has been one of the most successful coaches wherever he has gone. And I think over time, again, he will prove that. But man, did this feel like a Chargers game. This felt like a Brandon Staley Chargers game. This felt like the Phillip Rivers, however many years that he was there, Chargers game where things just could not go right for them, right? For that first half, it felt like everything was going right. And then when it mattered the most, they could not get anything to go their way. So over time, Chargers fans, I do think it will improve because the quarterback is too good. The head coach is too good. And this is year 1 of the rebuild. This is a year where we were expecting you to be competitive. I think wild card round was probably about like high-end expectations for them. Like winning a playoff game would have personally blown my expectations out of the water. I think what they did, although they went out kind of sorry, I will give them that. Making it to the playoffs after, where they were last season, picking in the top 5, top 6, that's a W that you have to go forward. But you're going to have to make some big Justin Herbert battles when you're on Twitter and Instagram or wherever else you're going to be arguing, because everyone has all this ammo of him playing pretty terrible for 2 playoff games. And as someone who has defended Lamar Jackson for 6 or 7 years, it's a hard battle to defend when this guy is amazing in the regular season, and the playoffs come around and feels like he shrinks and doesn't live up to the moment. He's going to get called Joel Embiid and every other word on the book. But again, I do think talent eventually has to rise to the top, and Herbert's going to have a great playoff run one of these years. It just happens that it hasn't been this year.
Interesting. Very interesting. It's
Sympathy Dehls over here.
It's interesting the route he took to defend Herbert. It's very interesting.
Justin Herbert's a great quarterback.
He ain't even let Drew get into his Texans spiel. He said, Herbert, wait up.
Yeah,
Not his fault.
It's just
it was his fault. It was definitely his fault. I never said it wasn't his fault. It was definitely his fault. He played like shit.
Interesting. I see how you move with certain quarterbacks. That's all I'm gonna say.
I like Herbert.
I could tell. Trust me. That pity party was there.
I'll tell you what's funny too. Couple of things. Number one, what's funny is obviously you're talking about how, coming in, if you would have said that wild card, that's around where that they would probably be exited from the playoffs. To me, that kind of goes out the window when we all had them winning this game. And when you come into the season, fair, I get that. That's probably that's the point you're trying to make. But now that we're in the moment and we're here and they were favorited to win this game and you get embarrassed the way that you do, to me, I get rid of that because now you were supposed to rise to the occasion. And this is now the second time the Chargers have failed to do so. In a Brandon Staley type game, to me, it's a little bit different here because I'm not looking at the defense as the reason they lost this game. Brandon Staley was notorious for pretty terrible decisions, especially on defensive side of the ball. I thought their defense showed up in this game. I thought that they got turnovers. They gave opportunities back to this offense. The unfortunate truth for Chargers fans is that your golden boy, the golden boy, Justin Herbert, he did not show up. And you give a lot of credit to the Houston Texans. And when I spoke about my pregame analysis, I was very high on the Texans defense. It was going to be the battle of the defenses for me. And it absolutely was. Now, what I was not anticipating was that the Chargers offense would do absolutely zero. And like you guys gave credit to, I have to give credit to as well. Will Anderson went and put his exclamation point on this game. Derek Stingley showed why he is in the conversation for best in the world. He's a legitimate game changer. You have to acknowledge what he's able to do in coverage. And we can also sit here and be fair. Does Justin Herbert not have weapons? Could they be better, I should say? Yeah, they could be better. But you know who could be better? Justin Herbert. And in these moments, when you have a quote unquote generational type talent, and I've been a guy who's been very vocal on how well I believe Justin Herbert can be in this league, this is now the second time where his defense put him in position to succeed. And unfortunately, he came up short. And you look at time and time again in this game where Chargers defense gave the ball back to Herbert in pretty plush territory, and they were unable to score a touchdown. They scored their touchdown late in the game where it was a nice throw by Herbert. I'll give it to him, but I give a lot of credit to Ladd McConkey for what he was able to do after the ball was in his hands. Really unfortunate showing for the Chargers, but all the credit goes to the Houston Texans and what they were able to accomplish today. I give a lot of credit to CJ, who did not start the game off great, but after that broken play, there was no turning back for him. He was a strong playmaker, whether it was making throws over the middle of the field or using his legs. That's really what impressed me in this game because you really never see CJ in that regard, but he looked super athletic today and was integral in them winning this game. A lot of credit to Houston. And if I'm being honest with you, my stock in the Chargers, it couldn't be lower. My stock in Justin Herbert also couldn't be lower.
How far has Justin Herbert dropped in the quarterback rankings?
I would love to know this.
I would love to know it too. We dropped CJ so far fucking low from the board. I really want to know.
So first, we have to establish where he was entering this game.
5.
Which is the 5th best quarterback in the NFL. I think after this performance, it was so abysmal that there is no conversation no more between him and Joe Burrow. I know people love to have that conversation. Joe Burrow gets knocked for his playoff performances or whatever. He has 5 playoff wins. He might have not played elite in every single game, but he's played good or way better than good in all of them. And what he's been able to do. I know the receivers for him are awesome, but the offensive line is still one of the worst in the NFL. The rushing attack is still not there. I think Burrow's pretty solidified. Despite the talent, he's pretty solidified over Herbert. So how far has Justin Herbert dropped in the quarterback rankings?
I want to know because we have those top 4. I think Matthew Stafford has been 6 consensus for a long time. And that's where things open up. That's where we've had CJ Stroud talks. We've had Jordan Love talks. A couple of years ago, we've had Jalen Hurts talks. That's where I want to know because everyone says, oh my God, you guys overrate Justin Herbert. Where do you want to put him? Do you want to put, I had someone comment and say, oh yeah, Jared Goff's in my top 10. Jared Goff's top 5. He takes Justin Herbert's spot. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, basically all of these quarterbacks, after you get past like Matthew Stafford, it's really up to whatever your taste is, right? Because Jared Goff, you put him in the perfect situation, like the Rams in the early days with Sean McVay, or what we're seeing right now with the Detroit Lions. He could play like a top 10 quarterback. We've also seen Jared Goff in bad situations with a bad offensive line or banged up wide receivers, and he hasn't been that quarterback. He was viewed, when he was traded for Matt Stafford, as one of the worst contracts in football, a negative asset to have him. And it felt like, oh, Detroit's going to take him on for a couple of years. Eventually, they'll cut him and find a quarterback. And then they ended up re-signing him because they have Ben Johnson, all of this talent. So to me, like, if you want to put Stafford over him and put him at 5, okay. Like, if you want to take Jordan Love, put him at 6. But
CJ Stroud or Herbert
for me to put him lower than like 7.
CJ Stroud or Herbert?
Justin Herbert.
I'm still going to take Herbert.
Answer.
No, I'll still go Herbert. I just.
Oh man, Riv. My goodness.
I just find it funny. I just find it funny from Dehls.
He played terrible today.
What's funny, Riv?
We can acknowledge.
It's just funny to me. It's funny to me how the energy is just not the same when Justin Herbert just played like shit.
I said he played like shit.
Another playoff game, and now he may. And you know what? You did say something, Dehls, that might make sense. He may not be able to get dropped because we may not just have nobody.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you want to put Jordan Love over him? Okay. Like, what if Jordan Love goes out and stinks it up against Philly? He's gonna have the same conversation.
He probably will. So I ain't even. He may have to be just
my boy Jalen's back in these convos. Come on now,
Baker Mayfield.
That's what I'm saying. Baker Mayfield, top 7. Like,
but just to talk about how bad Herbert was, shout out to you, Joel, for sending this to us. But shout out to Shield Kapadia. I hope that I pronounced your name correctly. Out of 214 quarterback performances in the playoffs over the last 10 seasons, that includes Tua's disaster against Kansas City last year. This Justin Herbert game ranks 213th in EPA per pass play. Only Brian Hoyer's game for the Texans in a 30-0 loss to the Chiefs in the 2015 playoffs ranked lower. He had the second worst game in the last 10 years. This was a horrendous game. And there was moments, the one interception that Will Dissly simply dropped, I will say that was not on Herbert. The first INT after a brain-dead C.J. Stroud INT, that was pretty terrible himself. You could argue it was worse. And then the INT that goes over Ladd McConkey's head, it's an in-betweener. If you want to say Ladd should catch it, I'm a guy that also agrees it hits your hands. You should catch it, especially if you're in the National Football League. But that being said, it was a little high. It was a little high, and it was one that you probably throw it a little bit lower. Ladd McConkey brings those in, and you look at all the catches he was able to make today. We're not going to put one moment on Ladd and say that we're going to try and now use that as like a Band-Aid to Herbert's terrible game.
I feel like it just depends on your criteria. If you value winning in the playoffs, then Herbert is not going to be in people's top 10s.
I value showing up.
I value playing good. Just play good.
Okay, where are we putting Herbert?
Herbert to me is still in the same spot. Like I haven't moved off of him. I still have a lot of belief in him. I'm gonna acknowledge, this game was the worst game of his career. He had 0 big time throws. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays. He also had 3 drops. He was under pressure almost on half of his dropbacks. I mean, the Texans defense really does deserve a lot of credit here. And 11 times when he was pressured, they were quick pressures. 5 unblocked. I mean, there were moments here where he was really under duress and he was getting his ass beat. But the interesting thing to note about that is that all of his turnover-worthy plays, all of his interceptions came with little to no pressure. It was just one of, his decisions. Really, the one to Ladd McConkey, you can argue like Rashawn Slater was right by his hip, and that's why he might have sailed it because he didn't have a base under him. I think this is just a bad performance. The running backs only averaged 2.8 yards per attempt. The offensive line allowed 16 pressures. Herbert played awful, but I also think that we just saw like the Chargers' weaknesses on offense on full display. If you look at the receiving leaders, Ladd McConkey had 197 yards. The second receiving leader was Will Dissly with 16 yards. That was their second receiving leader.
Quentin Johnson, shout to him for, where he was last season to where he was this season. Drastic improvement, right? I think he had 700 something yards, 750. Like he did nothing last season. He cannot be a wide receiver 2. I would even struggle for him to be a wide receiver 3. The fact that he had 750 yards was out of necessity. because the first half of the year, Ladd McConkey was not that involved. So he was the de facto wide receiver 1. So he's going to get looks. But I'm not looking at Quentin Johnson 750 yards and be like, oh shit, he made a lot of progression from his rookie year. Because while he did get better, I still struggle to see him as like someone that's consistently.
Look at this comment. Maybe Herbert can't elevate his receivers. Did you just not hear? Quentin Johnson had 750 yards.
He's got Quentin Johnson, DJ Chark, bro.
I think the better question is, where do we have CJ after this playoff game? Because you were big and you were hating all year. Granted, you didn't really give a fuck about the situation. You're sitting here talking about, Herbert's situation, how he has no other receivers. Well, CJ Stroud hasn't had his receivers this year either. It's been very sporadic. He's had Nico, then he didn't have Nico, then he had Diggs, then he didn't have Diggs, then he didn't have Tank Dell. He also has the worst offensive line in football, if not the worst, arguably one of the worst. They were dealing with similar situations where they had one guy, Ladd and Nico. They had a terrible offensive line because CJ was also getting banged up by Khalil Mack, by Joey Bosa and them boys. So you put him down after a sophomore slump, which his numbers probably look like Jalen Hurts numbers, which we say Jalen Hurts had a great year. So he had a sophomore slump, and then boom, he has a pretty good playoff game, which is pretty resilient. Where do you have him now? You took a couple guys over him.
Resilient. Come on. This was a defensive masterclass. I mean, listen, CJ played well, and I think he did play well. Like, was this an outstanding game to where it's like, oh,
I never said that.
we gotta have him in? No, I don't think he really moves up that much, in my opinion.
No, I'm not asking you.
Oh, you're asking Dehls.
Yeah, I don't mind. Like, if you want to have
Dehls like 9 over him that haven't made the playoffs or won playoff games. So that's why I'm asking him where are we.
Well, Riv, like you said before, there's not a lot of quarterbacks, right? Like there's quarterbacks you'll take, like Jared Goff, for example, who's in a perfect situation, had just one of the most efficient years in the NFL this year. So it's like, yeah, this year, sure, Jared Goff is good. But again, if you want to have CJ Stroud at 9 or 10, I'm not going to sit here and like bang on the table to say Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield or Jalen Hurts or one of these dudes are like convincingly better than him. I just said I had the Drake May comment. I just had the Drake May comics. I said long-term, I think Drake May could be a better quarterback than CJ Stroud because I don't think CJ Stroud really has anything that's this super special, whether it's athleticism, whether it's arm, whether it's processing. I don't think he has anything at like this super, super elite level. I think he's a really good quarterback. Like he showed that his rookie year. He had a sophomore slump, but I just never saw anything special with CJ Stroud.
Oh, we have this comment. It's funny that Joel wanted to bet Herbert gets his first playoff win before Tua and ragged on Tua's first playoff game in Frozen Tundra. Who gets their first playoff win now? The odds are even.
I'm still going to say, I don't know, dude. Miami's going in the wrong direction.
No, but I'm a name
you. Call for CJ Stroud.
Are you saying like who would I rather have?
I'm asking you a question, brother. Don't try to flip.
I would rather have. I think Jared Goff had the better year, but I'd rather have CJ Stroud.
Oh, right.
I'm gonna name you guys quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Let me know if you're. This is the Herbert thing. If any of these quarterbacks are better than Herbert now, how far does Herbert drop in your rankings? Okay, so Tua.
I'll take Herbie, of course.
Yeah, Herbert. Sorry, I for a second I forgot what we did.
Yo, Riv, plug in your mic, King.
Oh shit.
Okay. Joe Burrow. CJ Stroud.
We're here.
Herbert.
Stroud.
Oh, but we're back on Stroud now.
I never waver, brother. I never waver.
Bo Nix.
Come on.
Jesus Christ. Why is Bo Nix the next name we get?
I'm just looking at AFC teams.
No, Herbert.
Did Drew freeze or did he not answer?
He froze.
He froze.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, Drew's back. Bo Nix.
Are we getting nasty?
Say it with your chest.
Who's older?
I think Bo Nix is older. No, I don't think he's
probably a couple of years younger than
yeah,
Herbert.
he's probably like 2 years younger.
A couple might be a stretch.
They played in college, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they did. Somebody looked that up, man. He froze.
Yeah, Herbert's 26. Bo Nix is definitely younger.
He's like 24, I think, right?
Yeah. Drew froze again. Okay, so we'll circle back to that.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield.
I'm taking Herbert.
I'm taking Herbert. Baker's a nut job.
I'll just make this easy, Joel. The only quarterback that you haven't named yet that I will take over him is Matthew Stafford.
I know. Let's just keep going, mister.
Would you take Drake May over him, Dehls?
Huh? No, I would take Justin Herbert.
Why?
I think Justin Herbert is if Drake May reaches the absolute ceiling.
I feel like Drake May can get higher. Is this what we see from
Herbert?
Herbert?
I guess because the playoff failure, but I'm saying like regular season, 5,000 passing yards, like 35 touchdowns, the athleticism, the big arm, all of that.
Okay. This next name, Drew's back. This next name, Jared Goff.
Taking Justin Herbert.
I'd take like 13 quarterbacks over Jared Goff.
Herbert's more talented than Goff. Who's played better these last couple of seasons? It's been Jared Goff.
Jordan Love.
Before I answer this, did anybody take Bo Nix?
No.
Did you?
You froze.
Did you take Bo Nix? You're the only one.
You know what? I can always take the cop out and say I'm just going to take my quarterback, Bo Nix. I'll take Bo Nix over Patrick Mahomes. That's my energy.
Okay, we might have got another frozen frame here. Okay,
we got to get him connect to your hotspot, maybe, bro. I had to do that.
Yeah, we need to do something here. Okay, Kyler Murray,
Justin Herbert,
Brock Purdy,
Justin
Herbert. He's honestly just a bigger Brock Purdy. Let's just be all the way serious. Not even trolling either.
If he was bigger and more athletic and everything was better, yeah.
Jaden Daniels.
It's just because he's bigger. Are you serious?
I'm asking.
Joel, it has nothing to do with you. I'm talking about that other guy. That's a thought?
I took Justin Herbert.
You thought about it.
Listen, we've gotten Brock Purdy and like Bo Nix the last two. Jaden Daniels, at least for a second, I was like, oh shit, Jaden didn't know.
Interesting. You didn't think about Drake May. That's why I was asking.
No, I'm realistic. I'm not thinking about either.
Okay.
Jalen Hurts.
Justin Herbert.
He would have said Hurts 2 years ago.
I don't know. Because even 2 years ago, I didn't have him over Herbert.
Wow. So really, Herbert has this awful of a game, and he is not penalized at all by you, Dehls.
There's not. Where should I drop him?
I'll say he's dropped from the top four.
No, he dropped one spot.
No, he ain't in that tier. That's all I'm saying.
He might not be in the game changer tier until further notice. Now, I do want to say, like the Texans, they made Josh Allen have his worst performance of the season.
Yeah.
They also made Jared Goff throw 5 interceptions. Tua also had a bad game against the Texans. Like the Texans have made quarterbacks have their worst career games against them. So this has been a defense that has been elite all season long. And CJ Stroud, when kept clean, 18 for 23, 198 yards, 1 touchdown. When he's in rhythm, he got protection. He's a dangerous quarterback, but they haven't done enough of that all year.
Real quick, before we
what up?
What was your biggest issue with CJ Stroud? Just the Drake May comment?
No, I just felt like when you made the Drake comment, it was fine. Like Drake May is extremely talented, but then I felt like you just started attacking my boy, just unprovoked, and it was weird to me.
It's just because it's you.
It's just
if you didn't love him, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but I love a lot of guys. You don't hate Josh Allen, and I love Josh Allen. I love Josh.
How can I hate on Josh Allen?
How can you hate on CJ? So cool, man.
Because he's not that good this year. He hasn't been that good.
You see how you see we got him. You see, because Josh
Allen is going to be second in MVP. How can I be like, oh yeah, I could really say X, Y, and Z about him? He's amazing.
CJ Stroud from weeks 1 to 7 was a top 7 MVP candidate.
You know what it is, Riv? You know what it really might be?
What?
The Jets have been dog shit for 2 years, and this man sucks against them. So I just see him and say,
he never has his receivers when he plays you guys.
It's unfortunate.
He never does. It's all right though, bro. Like you could take your guys. You could take Trey Lance. You could take Anthony Richardson. You could take your quarterbacks. I'm gonna just stick with my quarterbacks, and I'll be okay.
I second what Drew said earlier about the Chargers and their expectation. Even though, like before this game, you would have said the Chargers had a successful season. This was so bad of a loss and so bad of a performance from Herbert that I think you are sour about the entire season. Like there's some bright spots, like Ladd McConkey, their young corners developing, their linebackers. Like there are some bright spots, but if you're a Chargers fan, you leave this season number one questioning if Herbert can perform in big time moments in the playoffs because he's now 0 for 2. And also Jim Harbaugh, I thought his play calling in situations was pretty awful, especially in the short yardage situations. Really, Greg Roman, but
I was going to say Harbaugh. Yeah. I remember him not calling plays.
Yeah, Greg Roman, but really Jim Harbaugh has the influence to go for it on those like short yardage situations. But I didn't like that. The rushing attack wasn't working all game long, and they were like running directly into the Texans' strength. So there was just some questionable things. I just feel like as a whole, the Chargers has got a lot of work to do in surrounding Herbert with some more talent, because the only team they beat over 500 this year was the Broncos. Every other team they lost to that was over 500. So they benefited from a pretty easy schedule this season, and that might not be the case next season.
Yeah, no, I really think the play calling is what scares me the most for both of these teams. For the Texans side, I worry that you have a rocky regular season, but you win a playoff game. So regardless of what happens in KC, because I do think they're going to lose, say they do lose, at the end of the season, how aggressive do you get to look to upgrade over Bobby Slowick? Because I think if you go out, say it was the opposite, and the Chargers win 32-12 or whatever it was, and the offense looks that bad, right? You have like 1 or 2 good drives, then I think there's a good chance to move on for him. But the fact that you win a playoff game, you can maybe get complacent. You go into next season with Bobby Slowick again. Granted, you'll have the weapons back. You'll make improvements on the offensive line. Maybe it gets better, but I worry about that. Now, on the Chargers side of things, look at the Baltimore Ravens these last 2 years. The number one issue I have with the Chargers is going to be Greg Roman, because I know they need wide receivers. They need running backs too. I like J.K. Dobbins. I don't want him to be my workhorse. I would love him to be my number 2 running back. I think you can upgrade there. But we saw him limit Lamar Jackson in the passing offense. Lamar, to his credit, got better as a player, but the offense was very, elementary compared to Todd Monken's. And we see they just had the most efficient season in NFL history. So the play callers on both sides here can still hold these teams back.
I agree with that 100%.
Now, Ravens-Steelers. The Ravens beat the Steelers 28-14. In the first half, it was looking like it was going to be 42-0. That's how much the Ravens dominated. But the Steelers showed some life. Russell Wilson was playing well in the second half. They got some defensive stops, but ultimately the Ravens are just too good. And I feel like we'll see if this translates over into the next round. If they face Buffalo, I think it will, because I think it's a good matchup for them stylistically. But I feel like this is why they got Derrick Henry, to take some pressure off of Lamar Jackson. He had 100 yards rushing in the first half. If the Ravens can continue to follow this formula and lean on Derrick Henry, I do think, this team is capable of winning the entire thing.
It's time, man. It's time for the Steelers to blow it up. I think we all expected Baltimore to kind of win this game. It's kind of be a walkthrough. The Steelers have been free falling for like the last month. And, credit to Mike Tomlin, what he's done. Probably going to be a Hall of Fame coach whenever he decides to hang it up. Good dude, has a legacy and all that good stuff. Shout out to TJ Watt, great dude, Hall of Famer for sure, one of the best defensive players in football. Shout out to George Pickens, he's dog. It's time, man. Russell Wilson's going to go down. He might be in the Hall of Fame too. This team sucks. This team hasn't been good in some time. This team is just very complacent and very happy with, we're going to make the playoffs, but we're probably going to lose in the first round. I think I saw some stat that said they've been down in the first half of like their last 5 playoff games, and that's pretty nasty. You don't see no real adjustment with this team in the offseason. You don't see no real progression. You've kind of seen the same thing over and over and over again since the Big Ben days, and you kind of hate it because this is a team that's kind of built off history and built off culture. They kind of have built up in our lifetimes, like we've seen some great teams from Pittsburgh, and now towards the back end, we're kind of seeing the decline. So I think, this loss kind of should give them the kick in the ass that they need to kind of blow it up and start this, this whole rebuild over and really transition to trying to find, a quarterback, trying to do it the right way. Keep making the playoffs and having these late picks really has not done nothing for them in the grand scheme of things. But Baltimore, great win. Lamar, Derrick Henry continuing on doing what they've been doing all regular season. The defense for the Ravens kind of did what they needed to do. This felt like an easy win for Baltimore. This felt like a walk in the park. Their real test, and they know it. Their real test is next week against Buffalo if they win that game. And that's just what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for Buffalo and Baltimore round 2. We don't care about Baltimore versus the Steelers. Their ass. This is what we've been waiting for, and we're excited for that.
Don't sleep on the Broncos, bro.
Respectfully, if Denver makes it,
you're just acting like the Bills are just going to win.
I thought about going. My brother talked me out of it because Buffalo, it's about to be 30 degrees over there, and it's a 6-hour. So I'm about to drive 6 hours, be miserable cold, with the chance that we lose too. It's just not something that I want.
It's always better to watch games in the comfort of your own house. Warm, you got snacks. I ate some pretzel and hummus today. I got it from I got that combination from Max's.
You don't seem
the other day.
Joel, you don't seem too heartbroken for a guy whose team just lost.
The Chargers.
What are you confused? Why? What are you confused about?
Because the Chiefs are in the race. That's my team. Like if they're in the race. Like, and this game also gives me.
We got them, y'all. This
game gave me hope because we weren't expecting the Texans to win, and we're also not expecting another team to win tomorrow. And if they do win, I'm gonna be very happy.
Who? The Broncos?
The Green Bay Packers. Baby.
Yeah, that was an obvious. Come on, y'all.
Because there's no chance they win. That's why.
Okay, I'm just listening to you. You might be right. You might be wrong. I'm hoping that you're wrong.
Everybody's playing tomorrow.
Did you see the picture of Jalen Hurts drinking that water? Still talking about he never dealt with a concussion before. It's not something easy, Riv. Yeah. He might throw to the other team a couple too many times
with no concussion. So
okay, yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
Everybody
okay.
We're so good. Philly's gonna be lit. It's gonna be a movie. We're gonna have Meek Mill playing. It's gonna be some fun times. Get ready for that.
I'm pretty disappointed in the wild card games that happened today.
I was going to say, when Russ kind of came out of half and he was dotting, I got a little excited. I was so used to watching some pretty crap football today that anything was positive. He had that nice dot to Pickens. I said, wait a minute now. Are we actually going to get some life? They got to stop, too. They had an opportunity. Punt. I was like, all right, well, this is the end of any dream that I had of Pittsburgh trying to make this a fun game. But regardless, shout out to the Baltimore Ravens, specifically that defense, obviously. That midseason turnaround, or a little bit after midseason, they really have just been on a different level. And I know that a performance versus the Pittsburgh Steelers isn't one that's going to really get people behind you and have people believe that your defense is legit. But regardless, you have to come out here and execute. And I just can't get enough of this offense. Joel, you had a funny tweet, and I give you respect, Joel, for calling him out on it.
This guy has some nerve.
Wide receiver
Mr. Agenda.
Fuck you, buddy. You're disrespecting the king.
I'm a huge fan of watching content, especially Joel's, wherever he's at. He was on with MJ, and he's talking about Lamar Jackson. He's talking about how he thinks that they're going to go on this Super Bowl run.
Oh, I saw that.
But he starts it with, I've never been a Lamar Jackson fan.
I gotta be genuine. I gotta be honest.
So he goes on other people's platform and tells the truth, but on ours, he lies to our fans. That's funny to me. However,
I'm lying to people about being a Lamar fan.
I love. You like to push like this fake idea that you like Lamar Jackson.
Now I do. No, I've been since last year. I've been like Lamar Jackson.
Like we don't do since
I've been like Lamar.
Year. No, you're either there or you weren't.
I called him to win MVP last year. We talked about it. What are you talking about?
Hold him, no arm Lamar. No arm Lamar.
Hold up.
Come on, Lamar.
Hold up. No
slogans to bash the man.
Wait, hold up. No arm Lamar has been a retired jersey for about 3 seasons now. But we haven't brought it up.
Kamal Lamar?
Kamal Lamar was definitely 2.5 years ago, and that's a jersey that's not unretired. That can always pop back up depending on the moment.
Yo, he's a hater, man. Nuts. He's a hater.
Anyways, it was funny to see that. Shout out to my boy Shotty B. Rashad Bateman, a nice touchdown today. That was lit. But what was it? Nelson Aguilar and whoever.
I threw Anthony Miller in there. I didn't know Anthony Miller was on the Ravens. I'll be honest.
That shocked me hearing his name today too.
Yeah.
But of course, we have to acknowledge Derrick Henry's still one of the best skill position players in the league, and you still got Mark Andrews in there. But Rashad Bateman has been a huge added bonus to this team this season. And with Zay Flowers down, you needed somebody to step up outside of course, Derrick Henry. And Rashad Bateman had that early touchdown. But Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's just so spectacular to watch. And I hope this is the year that he finally puts it all together. This was a great start to that campaign. Very interested to see how he looks in round 2, whether that is versus the Buffalo Bills. But I'm really hoping it's versus the Houston Texans. But this was a pretty great, well-rounded performance by the Baltimore Ravens. And I am with you, Riv. I think that this is the end of Mike Tomlin's tenure as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. I just think that it's time. Every single year, December, early January, you're a first-round exit. The wheels fall off in December, and we're not moving towards anything positive. It's time that we go ahead and we blow it up. Enough with the mediocrity or being slightly above mediocre. The whole goal is to play for a competitive chance to win a Super Bowl. And every year, unfortunately, if you don't have a quarterback playing at the highest of level, not that Russ was horrendous tonight. He just wasn't anything that you can uplift and go out there and play winning football and compete against one of the best we've ever seen in Lamar Jackson. And that's all right. But I think that it's one of those situations where we have to look for the Steelers to just completely start over and figure out what to do next.
Joel, quick question. Guys, follow me. This is definitely on topic. Joel, were you a Cam Newton fan? Be honest.
That's so long ago.
Not being a Cameron fan's nuts.
So were you a Cam Newton? No, you wasn't.
No, wait. Hold up. Cam Newton. I mean, yeah, I think I was a fan. He wasn't like my favorite player, but like I liked him.
So you wasn't a Cam Newton fan. You're not a Jalen Hurts fan. You wasn't a Lamar fan.
You a Mike Vick fan?
Yeah, were you a Mike Vick fan?
Were you happy when they put him in prison?
I support dogs.
Okay, so
that answers my question.
Okay.
I support dogs. No, listen. No, Cam Newton, he was spectacular. I mean, let's not discount it. We had a debate. Me and Riv did back in 2019. I remember the date, 2019. Cam Newton versus Lamar Jackson, whose MVP season was better. We debated that. I was on the side of Cam Newton. Let's just say, maybe that makes me a Cam Newton fan.
Were we debating that?
We did. It's still on YouTube. You can go check it out.
Cam Newton. Can you guys guess the last time Anthony Miller had a catch in an NFL game?
2021.
Let's go.
Round table.
2017.
No. He's been in the league for 5 years.
I don't know who that
Anthony Miller, 2018.
2021. You were right, Drew.
Oh,
when I saw that, I was like, is that the Anthony Miller, like the second round pick, Chicago Anthony Miller? And it is. He just has been on practice squads, I guess, for the last 4 seasons. He's played in like 2 games for the Baltimore, but I didn't even know he was on the team until today.
I'm glad they got these 2 games out of the way, though. Shit was snooze fest.
Yeah, but this was great for Baltimore, man. I loved every second of it. It was a little at the end, like second half. It's like, all right, we need to stop here. Don't let them score a touchdown. It's a 1-possession game. Let's not fuck around, But thankfully, the defense stepped up. If the Ravens, first of all, I should say, if the Buffalo Bills beat the Broncos, so the Bills and Ravens face off, the Ravens win that game, they're winning the Super Bowl. I already have them as my pick to win the Super Bowl, so I already think it's going to happen. But that game would stamp it for me. Because
it's the Chiefs. You have to beat the Chiefs.
We're fine.
Calm down. You're chatting. You're chatting.
We're fine. The Texans can make that game a little chippy. Who knows?
What if they win?
Who knows?
What if the Texans win?
They beat the Buffalo Bills. And their defense, because listen, Joel, you've been pushing this. Drew, I heard you mention it, so it sparked in my head. If they beat the Bills, that means the defense was able to make some stops on Josh Allen or force some sort of turnovers. Because I don't know realistically if the offense is just going to score 45 points, it's going to be a shootout. I just don't think that's how the game's going to go. Realistically,
Mahomes is a different animal.
So if they're able to make some sort of stops, that shows me the defense stepped up against Buffalo. I have faith they could step up against KC.
The Chiefs are a different animal. Xavier Worthy is getting in the mix. Travis Kelce, he's going to play well in the playoffs. They have made some adjustments to our offensive line, and Jalen Watson's coming back in that secondary.
I told you guys, I warned you.
The Chiefs, they don't have the same vulnerabilities that they had back in week 11. It's going to be a challenge, okay? And when we get to that point, it's going to be my team versus your team.
You already put the bracket up. We know who you're pulling for.
What did he just say?
Who was in his bracket, actually? I don't remember.
The Ravens. The Ravens are winning it all in his bracket.
I'll say this. If the Texans beat the Chiefs, I'm putting CJ in like top 3 conversations. I think that's fair.
All right, so if Bo Nix beats Josh Allen, I'm allowed to put him in top 7 convos.
Yes. If he plays well and you win, do your thing.
Kill Moose goes, I got nothing but love for Lamar because Louisville is my team. Same. But it does kill me as a Bengals fan, so it's hard to root for the Ravens. But I definitely want to see Lamar put it on the table. # save us Lamar.
Put it on the table.
What on the table?
It's nuts. That was nuts.
Whoopity Scoopity goes, as a Steelers fan, I'm tired of the same old shit for the past 10 years. How long before people can agree that Mike Tomlin is the problem? He's great, but it's turning into Andy Reid in Philly.
Oh,
Chris Bass goes, Herbert played bad, but this was an all-around Chargers loss. A collective team loss through and through. Texans always stood a chance, and they took it.
The Chargers had
They took it like a good little boy.
Can we bring the Tomlin up real quick?
Yeah, we will. We only have two more. Penix will be top 5 in 3 years. Trust.
Top 5. What?
And then Santos goes, Drew, when is playback coming back?
Very soon.
Yeah. So we can talk about this this Steelers thing, the Mike Tomlin thing. I just think it's very hard to win if you don't have a high level quarterback. And I think Arthur Smith, that hire was a step in the right direction. I just think they need to swing big for a better quarterback, and they need to build a better infrastructure. It's fine if you have Russell Wilson, but you have the Lions offensive line and you have a great set of weapons and receivers, but the Steelers don't have that. So like, I think their priority has to be adding wide receivers to the team and just making sure they have a viable offensive line that can actually help the team with their rushing attack, because they can't run the ball. Like, this offense is just terrible. And Tomlin is a little bit weird to me because he's not an offensive guy. Is he really a defensive guy? He's kind of like just a manager of personalities. So he's not really bringing anything elite to the table, but he's never had a losing season. There's that. I just think this is a more extreme version of Marvin Lewis, where Marvin Lewis, in 10 of his 16 seasons, he had a winning record with the Bengals, but he was 0-7 in the playoffs. He never won a playoff game. Now, Mike Tomlin has won a playoff game, but in recent memory, he has not won any.
He won a playoff game.
Super Bowl is just, I feel like he could be out of Marvin Lewis talks.
He's Doc Rivers,
I know
brother.
what you mean, but
he's Doc Rivers. You love Doc Rivers. You shit on Mike Tomlin. It's funny, but they're the same dude.
I don't think that's wrong.
I just think that, like, I don't know if I'd move on from Mike Tomlin just because I feel like the roster, it's clearly lacking something.
Yeah. Blow it all up.
It's
Trade TJ. Fire Tomlin. Blow it up.
Like, I think
bad next year.
Like, I think I'd give Tomlin another year. Like, I don't think trading TJ is a bad idea because they have Herbert and Alex Highsmith. Like, they're both really damn good, and they could start. Highsmith especially, like, he's an all-pro level player when he's healthy. But I think you probably give Tomlin another year, try to fix the offense, try to add receiver talent, and see what happens. But, you know, the biggest thing holding them back is they don't have a quarterback. They keep on settling for these bridge guys, and this year was way better than last year on what they got. But it still doesn't stack up to where the rest of the league is, especially in the playoff bracket.
And if your quarterback's not going to be like pretty game manager-ish and be average, if that's going to be the case, you need an elite level defense. And this Steelers defense fell off a cliff.
Yeah, and the offense isn't good. Like, the offense is bad. It definitely tricked me when I said Tom's name. You
got fooled by Najee Harris. You got fooled.
Najee had a good couple games for sure.
He's coming.
But the offense definitely tricked me.
Archman is coming to Pittsburgh.
Caleb Belts goes,
yeah.
Ben Johnson to the Raiders. Thoughts?
It's gonna happen. I'm gonna be sick.
Did you guys see that Vrabel was pretty much a Patriot?
Yes,
that makes sense. He has ties to them. I think Ben Johnson. It's tough to take the Raiders job. He's probably going to get a ton of security and money from that job. It's not terrible. You know, the offensive line's getting better. Brock Bowers is like a generational talent. That can be something if they get a quarterback. But to me, the Raiders job falls in line with the Saints job. They're just undesirable because there is no long-term quarterback there. And there's a lot of holes. Like, the Raiders have some offensive talent, but defensively, there's so many positions they need to fill.
And the division, you have Kansas City, you have the Chargers, and you have the Broncos. Those are 3 playoff teams and, you know, a dynasty going on right now. So to enter that division with no quarterback, once Tom Telesco got fired because he had one draft and it was amazing, I was like, okay, there's something weird going on here with Ben Johnson, that he wanted some sort of pull. And of course, we're hearing all the reports of Tom Brady and his influence, talking to Bill Belichick potentially, Mike Vrabel, I think a rumor was out there, and now this Ben Johnson thing. He's definitely pulling some muscle too to get these guys in.
Yeah. So to recap this episode that we just did, Herbert played bad.
Shit.
But isn't nothing will be held against him after this game. You know,
I'm holding against him. I'm done.
Still the same guy.
No longer a Herbert guy. It's over.
Still the same guy. Top 5. You know, that's what we all think. Still,
no, he's
probably.
6. He's 6 to me.
Oh, 6. Oh, Stafford just jumped him. Oh, what a step backwards.
I'll tell you what.
Depends. Let's get nuts.
It depends on how Jordan Love goes crazy tomorrow. Maybe he could drop to 7. Let's wait.
What about Jalen Hurts?
I like that.
If Jalen Hurts plays amazing tomorrow, he'll drop to 8. We can keep doing this all day.
Dak Prescott. Let's get crazy.
No, that's where you lose me.
Dak, yeah, last year he was really, really amazing.
He got
Prescott,
in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Dak, baby. Dak. Well, yeah, we'll be here tomorrow if the Broncos lose. If they win, we won't be here as stipulation of Drew's.
Damn right.
So if the Broncos lose, if you guys want to see us tomorrow, you gotta hope that the Broncos lose. No. If you don't want to see us,
up, but it's true.
If you don't want to see us, then hope the Broncos win.
Don't want to see us.
But yeah, if they do indeed lose, then we will be recapping all the games that night. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Wild card recap. First couple playoff games, not off to the best start, but hopefully tomorrow we'll be back with some better games. And we got one last super chat. Drew, you should have came to Buffalo. It's a movie. Broncos W.
I got cut off. I don't know if you guys heard, but I was thinking about it. Tickets are kind of cheap right now. They're like 80-something, 90-something dollars. Decent seats. It's going to be 30 degrees. It's a 6-hour drive. I'd have to leave at 5 a.m. to get there.
It's a lot.
It's a 6-hour drive? Dude, this guy's been going crazy. I had to pick him up.
Yeah, no, 6-hour drive. I contemplated, but I don't think I'm going to go.
No, that's a lot. And I mean, if they lose, then you wouldn't come on the podcast. The same thing.
I go 6 hours. If they lose, I'm gonna be sick. But on the off chance they win, that 6-hour drive back would be amazing. A movie.
Yeah, you're playing nice little
like
music.
3.5. I did that easily. I'll be honest, for the parade.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
Yeah,
Boston's easy. But Buffalo is 6 hours.
Jason Tatum locked eyes with me, bro.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow if the Broncos lose. So thank you guys. Have a great night. You can follow us on Twitter at PickAsidePod, on Instagram and TikTok at PickAsidePodcast. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.